Good morning on what feels like a spring day, not midsummer here in Boston. This week's Torah portion is Parshas Ba'alotcha. It's a beautiful portion. There's a lot of details. We read about the kindling of the menorah, we read about the manna, we read about the clouds. But at the end of the portion, there's a remarkable story. And it's the story of Miriam and her two brothers. You see, Moses separated from his wife. After God kept on constantly speaking to Moses, Moses felt that he needed seclusion and he needed to be alone. And Miriam turns to her brother Aaron and says, "Who does Moses think he is? God speaks to you and I too. And we're still married." And suddenly God appears. And God chastises Miriam for speaking gossip about her brother to her other brother. And suddenly Miriam gets what was the punishment for gossip, which was leprosy. She becomes filled with leprosy. And the law was that when you get leprosy, you go into isolation for a week. So suddenly Miriam, the prophetess Miriam, is in isolation for a week. But you see, the Torah tells us something remarkable. That the Jewish people waited and didn't travel their sojourns in the desert while Miriam was in isolation. Out of respect to Miriam, they waited for a week so she should be able to travel with them and not alone. And the rabbis say that this was really a reward for Miriam. You see, back when Moses was born, his mother put him in the basket after 3 months, and she puts him on the Nile, right? And suddenly Pharaoh's daughter comes and sees Moses' basket. And she takes the baby. And suddenly a girl appears. Says, "Do you want me to call you a wet nurse from the Jewish people?" And Batya says yes. And Moses' mother comes and takes the baby. And ends up having the baby for all the time that the baby needed to nurse. And then he grows up in Pharaoh's palace. But who was this girl? Of course, the Torah tells us it was Miriam. You see, when Yocheved put Moses in the Nile, in the basket, Miriam stood from back. She went back a little bit and hid in the bushes and watched the whole time and stayed there because she was worried about her brother and she wanted to protect her brother. And the rabbis say in that honor, the Jewish people all waited for her for 7 days, for those few hours it was that she waited for her brother. Firstly, it was a recognition of her kindness and her friendship and her care for her brother. But more than that, it was the Jewish recognition to say, think what Miriam did over 100 years ago and the impact it had on us as a Jewish nation. Because of Miriam protecting her brother and him being saved, we had the greatest leader, Moses, who took us out of Egypt and brought us to Sinai to give us the Torah and take us to the promised land. So this deed that Miriam did so many years earlier came back to be the honor for her as the Jewish people waited for her. It's a lesson in the things that we do. Sometimes we think that no one cares, but when we stand up for the Jewish people, when we stand up for what's right, it gets noticed. You know, Omer Shem Tov was saying in this video I watched that when he was released from captivity after over 500 days, they took him on a helicopter back to the hospital so he could be checked up. And the helicopter makes noise, so they have these big headphones that are silencing headphones that he was wearing. And they gave him a whiteboard to write on it a message when people see him, as everyone was waiting and waving. And he wrote, "Hakol Beseder," everything's okay. So they took it, he put it by the window, everyone took pictures, and everyone was cheerful, everyone was waving, but then he asked for it back. And he wrote a PS. He says, "Ani rotzeh lechol burger achshav." I want to eat a burger now. 500 plus days in captivity, he was hungry for a good burger. They land at the hospital, and he comes out of the helicopter, and literally, there are hundreds of places from all over that saw this sign that he put up. We're delivering burgers. Every restaurant, every burger joint was delivering burgers. There were so many burgers that came that day to the hospital that there was enough to feed all the doctors, all the nursing staff, and everyone in the hospital. Was the nation grateful for his courage and his heroics, saying thank you for all that he did. Just as with Miriam, thousands of years earlier, when the Jewish people waited in recognition for all that she did for Moses, her little brother. Have a great